he did this. This is about border policies. This guy really kicks the shit out of him. That was good, but this guy really kicks the shit out of him.
Is Kamala Harris's border policies will turn America into an unsafe and bankrupt nation.
I will let some of my colleagues here in the circle really talk about why they appreciate Kamala Harris's right shift when it comes to border policy, trying to deter the amount of people that are coming through the southern border. That's not something I'm particularly passionate about. So I'm more inclined to talk about specifically why you, somebody who purports himself as someone who's uber capitalist, want to remove the labor pool from this country, which always increases to business and economic growth.
Right. So I'm not interested in removing the labor pool from the country as a general rule. However, I don't believe that it's an economic benefit to the United States to bring in a low skill, low education labor pool that is drawing significantly.
So, go ahead. You were going to say something?
Really? Like, he doesn't even know he's in a corner right now, because the truth of the matter is, yeah, you really do benefit from that labor pool. Are you going to get one of your kids when they're in high school to go into the fields and harvest the grapes that make the wine that sits on your table, or the whatever, you know? These are jobs that your average American doesn't want. I hate to say it that way, but quite frankly, we really don't want them. They're very hard and don't pay a lot. And I can't think of anybody in my world that would jump up and down. And I know people who have been very much seeking employment for a very long time, and I can't even think of a one of them who would be like, yeah, sign me up for that one. They're holding out for something else. Yeah. Even the people who are desperate for jobs are holding out for not that, you know?
Right, because they're sitting there like, it's not worth it for me to go work some job that pays under minimum wage, under the table, picking berries or picking cotton or whatever it is. Now, what he's missing is, so farm jobs, a lot of factory jobs are heavily dependent on immigrant labor. Heavily dependent. Without it, they collapse. And in fact, they've had that in COVID, and they closed the border and all that. It was really bad because a lot of farmers basically had to be subsidized, and Trump had to give billions and billions of dollars out to these farmers so they wouldn't sell or give up, because they were going under. And so we talked about it right now. I mean, we could use 5 million people right now to fill those jobs. And a lot of those towns, they had that whole thing about Springfield, Ohio, and Trump talking about them eating the pets. That whole town was saved by Haitian immigrants. That town was going under. Now they have, the factories are full, people are working, there's commerce again, because there's Haitian people there spending money and making money. But nobody else wanted to do those jobs. Like you said, a lot of these towns in the Midwest especially are dying. These small towns, they need, a workforce to show up and revitalize the town. And it's not going to come from the cities in the United States. Why would we do that? We're already doing okay. It would be a detriment for me to take a step down and do that. But if I'm a poor person in Haiti, or a poor person in Venezuela, everything sucks down there, or, I'm in political danger or whatever. Yeah, moving to Springfield, Ohio and working at a factory sounds pretty freaking sexy. I mean...
Right. I mean, unfortunately, as much as I want, better jobs and better everything for everybody, it's all sort of comparative, because you kind of need a labor pool who can look at that as a step up. Everybody in life is kind of looking to get one position better, right?
Right.
One position better than where you are. So you're not going to get a labor pool into those jobs if it's not at least one position better than the thing they have. And for your average American, that isn't. That would be at least one down or many levels down.
Right.
They're not jumping into it,
And some of that's just the economics of it. Some of these businesses and farms and stuff, they can't afford to pay that many people that much money. I mean, if the Springfield, Ohio factory, they're picking cotton on a farm, if that was paying $150,000 a year, there'd be Americans lined up for that job. But it doesn't. It pays like 30. Which is, so of course we're not going to line up for that. So, Anyway, we'll get back into this because it's just, like you said, he's already got him cornered, and they're only a few seconds in.
From public benefits, for example, there are very good data to show that there's huge reliance on, say, emergency rooms, educational facilities. Based on the Center for Immigration Studies, there's a net cost to low-wage, low-skill immigration coming into the country.
So you're in favor with emergency rooms just deterring people based on what they look like or what might be perceived as someone with a lack of citizenship?
No, I'm very much in favor of limiting the amount of illegal immigration to zero and then allowing a fair bit of legal immigration.
So you're more interested in decreasing the pool of people and population in this country so there are less emergency room visits, or are you more in favor of actually documenting these people so we're able to track like exactly who is coming through? Like I'm kind of lacking what your argument is.
It's not about number. It's about the people who are coming in. I believe that everybody who comes into this country should come in through a legal mechanism, and that the United States ought to be able to select the people who are coming in who are the best, brightest, and most useful to the American population, because that is the prerogative of any nation.
So do you think that the way that we do allow people in through our legalization process, especially with how much egregious obstacles people have to go through, might incentivize people to come through non-legal means?
I mean,
on average, it takes about 10 years.
Okay. Wait, what was that answer? What was that answer?
Don't you think if we made it more straightforward and practical, that they wouldn't be coming here illegally?
Made it not take so long, made it not cost so much. I mean, my God, we could still reject some people and at least make the application process easier.
Right. Do you
think
think?
Doesn't even mean you need to approve anybody.
Right. Do you think our government and the CIA, do you think their work in destabilizing Latin American countries, you know, for our political benefits, do you think that destabilization of those countries might be some reason why things are so bad down there, is causing more illegal immigration, Ben? I mean, Jesus Christ. He's got him in the corner. This is the old, what was the, Thomas More wrote Utopia, back in the Middle Ages, right? And he asked that question. He's like, so if the king overtaxes the people to the point where they're starving and then they have to steal to eat and then he imprisons them for stealing, didn't you just create a thief and then imprison him for being what you created? This is what Ben Shapiro's stuck in, and the guy just caught him on. Don't you think we are incentivizing them to come in illegally? Because our businesses are saying, yeah, we want the cheap labor.
And our policies are saying we're going to make it really, really hard for you to do this through a legal channel.
Right.
We do want your labor. Our jobs are here for you. We're going to make it impossible for you to come through legally and go.
Yeah. And part of that whole cycle is that it helps the business owners because they can take advantage of these people financially. They can take advantage of these people sexually. They can abuse them. They can overwork them. I mean, you're building the country on the backs of a disposable labor force. That's the problem here. And so he's saying, well, I want to limit and make it only legal people. And it's like, yeah, but Ben, the problem is that no matter how big of a wall you build or whatnot, there's still going to be demand for those jobs. So you can't get rid of demand. People are still going to want it. It's the whole thing with the drug trade. You can put 1 billion cops out there, but if people are still buying cocaine and heroin, they're going to find a way to ship it in.
Right.
I mean, they're just gonna. I mean, if the market's there, they'll find a way. That's where Ben's trapped here, but he got him. I mean, I thought that was great. Well, what was your answer there, Ben? Let me come back a little bit.
Country should come in through a legal mechanism, and that the United States ought to be able to select the people who are coming in who are the best, brightest, and most useful to the American population, because that is the prerogative of any nation.
So do you think that the way that we do allow people in through our legalization process, especially with how much egregious obstacles people have to go through, might incentivize people to come through non-legal means?
I mean,
On average, it takes about 10 years for somebody to gain citizenship in this country. And if somebody is fleeing political persecution, I really find it interesting how conservatives always like to talk about the response to certain behaviors instead of what the root cause is. When oftentimes...
So, I got him. I mean, it's just, you're not looking at the root. You're just exacerbating a bigger problem. And you got him. I mean, it was, like I said, he got his ass kicked by all these kids. Anyway, but it's...
well, the funny thing is,
go ahead.
It seems like the through line really is that what he's doing is in some respects, I mean, they're not my views necessarily, but in some respects, the thing he says he wants isn't the most horrible thing in the world. But like he's not actually looking at what the root of any of it is. He's just making these sort of blanket statements without stopping and realizing that like some of these problems are literally systemic. And, you know, like he's not thinking any further than the surface. I guess that's my point. He's not getting below the surface at all to realize anything is any more complicated than just like, here's this thing that I just think is what we need, you know?
Right.
He's not going any further.
And the reason I showed those two clips, because those are the big ones that they do on the Daily Wire, are trans people in sports and how that pisses them off. And it's unfair because trans people have some huge advantages in life somehow. And then the whole immigration thing. But when we're talking about immigration, let's make sure we know what we're talking about. He's not talking about Norwegians coming here. He's talking about brown people. He's talking about Hispanics and Latinos.
Sure. When he says best and brightest, he's talking about people that were educated in those you know, high-level European schools that can come with their degrees in hand and do whatever, you know, labor and position. That's what he's talking about.
Well, there are a lot of...
And when he's talking about, you know, not wanting, you know, abortions to happen, he's thinking about it in simplest terms. He's not digging below the surface and stopping and thinking, okay, sure, not my values at all, but sure, we'll take that. But
yeah,
look at all of these scenarios where you're like literally, you know, like, do you really think you really want this in this scenario and this scenario? Like, he doesn't dig below the surface on any of it.
Right, but that's the point, is it's all, like you said, surface level, dog whistle, homophobia, racism. And he hasn't actually drilled into the issue because he never talks to anybody outside that bubble. And the few times he has debated, he's on stage and he has a mic and he can control what the other person when to shut him up.
Right.
So it's, I mean, he has no advantage there, and that's the problem. Is as soon as he has to do it one-on-one, he gets screwed because it is all just homophobia, racism. That's it. That's all he's got, and he's got to try to find some way to shovel shit on it and make it, you know, make it look like that's not what's going on. But
right.